Greetings, dear friends. Your invaluable support is our strength. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. This greatly helps the growth of our channel. Leave your comments. Your feedback is very valuable to us. And now, to the most important and current world events. Let's go.
The coffin with the body of Pope Francis was brought from his Vatican residence to St. Peter's Basilica. A liturgy was held there. Soon the pontiff's body will be displayed for farewell. Thousands of believers will be able to see the Pope off on his final journey. On Saturday, the funeral ceremony and burial rite will take place. Francis will be buried not in the Vatican, but in the Basilica of Santa Maria Maggiore. After this, the Holy See will enter a 9-day mourning period. Once it concludes, the election of a new pontiff will take place. On RBC, the main news, in the studio, Marina Lapteva. Almost 3,500 people were evacuated after explosions at a military unit near the city of Kirzhach in the Vladimir region. Among them were 658 children. This was reported to the RIA Novosti agency by emergency services. People were taken from 7 settlements and directed to temporary accommodation centers. According to the head of the region, the authorities will discuss compensation payments to citizens for lost property and housing. The explosions at the military unit began yesterday afternoon. At least 4 people were injured. According to the authorities, there are no fatalities. A state of emergency has been declared. More than 12,000 people were temporarily left without heating and hot water. At the temporary accommodation center in Kirzhach, RBC correspondent Denis Davidov is present. Denis, what is the current situation at the temporary accommodation center, and what are people saying?
Yes, colleagues, greetings to you. Evacuated residents from nearby settlements are currently staying at the temporary accommodation center. Even now, the sounds of explosions can still be heard here periodically. Despite the fact that their intensity has noticeably decreased compared to last evening, especially, and we just heard one of them now, they have not stopped yet. It should be noted that our film crew spent the night in Kirzhach, and I can say that periodically, even at night, the windows here were shaking and the shockwave was quite strong. Behind me is a temporary accommodation center. Last evening, more than 120 people were brought here. This is essentially the main accommodation center for evacuated people right now. Let's listen to the comments.
As of today, for the residents of those settlements that fell into the affected zone, we have organized 1 temporary accommodation center in our district. Here at the school, we provided hot, full meals.
Now we have already resolved the issue. The city bathhouse also provides services without interruption.
Of course, there are many more evacuated people. The majority went to relatives and friends in safe areas in their own cars. People from the summer cottages immediately went back home. Today, here at the temporary accommodation center, a service was conducted by clergymen. Many people are, of course, very frightened by the incident, but there is no understanding yet of when they can return home. The situation is complicated by the fact that people do not know the current condition of their homes. Many are discussing rumors that a lot of houses may have burned down and been damaged. However, there is also no exact information at the moment. Let's listen to the comments of the evacuated people.
We are about 6 kilometers away, practically our village. And the explosion was such that was the shock wave really that strong? I can't even imagine how it was there. A police car drove by and they were announcing through a loudspeaker that there was an evacuation. That's it. So I decided to leave. What was there to wait for? Because these fragments were flying and whistling, all that. So I went to the bus stop and I saw that the buses had already arrived and we boarded. Then there was another attack. We even hid behind a store, behind a wall, so that we wouldn't be hit. And then we left, that's all. Somehow I quickly made the decision and left.
Not far from here, there is also a volunteer headquarters that has been operating since the morning. They distribute humanitarian aid there, food, household chemicals, clothing. All of this is brought by local residents and entrepreneurs. While we were there, people even came and asked what exactly needed to be bought and brought, what people are lacking at the moment. According to the head of the volunteer center, there is currently a shortage of warm clothing. Let's also listen to the comment.
There is a bit of a shortage of clothing because people are without clothes. They ran out of their homes just as they were, even the adults. So there might be a shortage of some windbreakers and sweaters are lacking.
The previous evening here in Kirzhach, stores were also closed due to the state of emergency. This morning, all of them have already opened. Schools and other educational institutions are also not operating today. As for the local residents, everyone is of course waiting and hoping that the sounds of explosions will stop soon and they will be able to return to their homes shortly. Overall, it can be said that life in Kirzhach continues. People are not hiding and are going about their business. In other words, life goes on. This is the current situation. Colleagues, I hand it over to you. Not far from the temporary accommodation point in Kirzhach.
Our correspondent Denis Davidoff is reporting. We continue the broadcast and move on to other topics. The ministerial-level talks in London on resolving the Ukrainian conflict have collapsed. The meeting will take place at the expert level, according to representatives of the British Foreign Office. The American delegation was led by Trump's special representative, Keith Kellogg. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio refused to fly to London. This is related to Vladimir Zelensky's statement that Ukraine will never recognize Crimea as Russian. Following this, leading diplomats from the UK, USA, France, Germany and Ukraine postponed the talks. Sky News reports that despite the cancellation of the high-level meeting, Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha will still hold talks with his British counterpart David Lammy, while Kit Kellogg will meet with French and German officials. Initially, the parties were supposed to discuss the U.S. plan for establishing peace. Specifically, it includes freezing hostilities, recognizing Crimea as Russian, and Ukraine's renunciation of joining NATO. In return, Kiev receives security guarantees and assistance in reconstruction. So, the meeting in London will take place, but in a different format with other high-ranking officials. Why was it rescheduled? Does the importance of these negotiations remain? What does the presence mean for Moscow? Is Kellogg there? To sum up, we discuss with Leonid Kurtakov, a political scientist and publicist. Leonid Viktorovich, I welcome you. Sky News writes that today's event will take place, quote, at a lower level, meaning the expert level. Is the importance of today's contacts also decreasing?
Yes, of course, it is decreasing because it carries a status. In such matters, it is very important. If it goes down to the level of assistance, or it's kind of like secretaries, it all gets wrapped up, which means that points of contact, that zone, agreements, and mutual understanding have not been reached. Because with any negotiation, there are certain precedents. They don't start from zero. We arrive and start talking. Theses are always sent to each other, certain programs, including those that are voiced. And there are already some leaks. And in the case where mutual understanding does not arise, if they are directly opposed to the views of Britain, Europe, and the American planet, then, of course, meeting at the highest level, at the level of out. Foreign ministries to be continued is pointless because no agreements will be reached, so they always drop down to a lower level of consultation. Therefore, we see that there will be consultations, there will be an attempt to search again for some areas of common interest, mutual understanding, which, as we see, are not present between Russia and the USA, because we have not yet seen a single joint communique after the meeting, yes, of our delegations. That is, there have always been different ones with various interpretations. Therefore, the problem is bigger than, as I have said many times, the Ukrainian issue, actually. It is much broader, and our government, as it were, emphasizes that, guys, the problem is not in Ukraine. The problem lies in global security, in the new achievements of a new formula for peace. Because the formula for security is the formula for peace. We are told about certain guarantees for security, for restoration, but our world has always been built on power parity, not on agreements, signed papers. Because the one who is stronger dictates the rules. And if there is power parity, then we will sit down and negotiate. We are in such a stalemate situation from the side of the USA, Europe, and Russia. And as long as the zone of agreements is so wide, that is, there are no points of contact visible. Therefore, the negotiations are going down. Kellogg is present there because he is the main negotiator with Ukraine, right? With Russia, it's Witkoff. They specifically divided it so that there wouldn't be. And of course, for Europe, this is a blow because Europe always considered itself the main partner of the USA, one of the leaders of the global world. And suddenly, the USA says, guys, you are not the main ones. For us, an agreement with Russia is more crucial. Even Ukraine was sitting somewhere in the back rooms in a neighboring office when the negotiations were going on between the Ukrainian and American and Russian. And the Europeans were not there. That is, they were pushed to the periphery. And they were told by the USA, you are secondary. For us, Russia is crucial. Of course, this is a blow. Of course, for them, it's a catastrophe. Naturally, this causes the colossal internal discord in the Western world.
Leonid Viktorovich, you just mentioned Kellogg. And it's a well-known fact that many consider his approach to Moscow to be tough. What role can he play at this negotiating table? For Moscow as well.
Well, sort of. It's just that if one person from the US were to represent Washington's interests in negotiations with both Russia and Ukraine, it would be inappropriate. Therefore, of course, they divided it simply because the positions are too different. So opposing in terms of Ukraine and how to resolve it, well, it's difficult for one person. Of course, Kellogg presents himself more as a pro-Ukrainian politician in the public arena, so to speak, while Witkoff is more pro-Russian. It's like a good cop, bad cop game, like Nanai Boys. It's clear that one hand is controlling, but the guys are just playing their roles.
Earlier, the media reported that both Kyiv and Brussels is united in its position, not intending to legally recognize Crimea as Russian. And also in London, a formula for sending European peacekeepers to Ukraine may be proposed, which Moscow categorically opposes. And Plus Axios wrote about the fact that in London, Ukraine will try to propose to Trump a 30-day ceasefire without adopting Trump's peace plan. These positions, do these theses increase the chances of escalation?
I would say that these positions, these theses, do not bring closer peace in Ukraine, in Europe, and in the world as a whole, because it's clear that sort of a 30-day freeze, a halt does not solve the problem. It's clear that this is merely an opportunity to redeploy forces, an opportunity to bring up reserves, an opportunity to recover. It's like with these agricultural agreements. Remember when they said, let's first withdraw your troops and then we'll hold elections in Luhansk? Yes, no, you can't do it like that. Stop the war and then we'll negotiate the principles. No, let's agree on the principles on which we will continue to exist and the conditions under which we will stop the war step by step. You can't put the cart before the horse, as was done. They tried to do it several times in the West and are trying to do it now. And America, in fact, from these positions, let's stop the war and then we'll decide how we will live in peace. No, that won't work. Guys, this war forced you to come to the negotiating table. You were forced to defend your interests, your security. Did you come to the negotiating table? And now you're telling us, let's reset everything to zero and then we'll negotiate. No, guys, we will negotiate from where we are, from the positions we currently hold. I think this is absolutely the correct position for Russia.
And another very important detail. The British Foreign Office stated that the British minister did not refuse a meeting with the head of the Ukrainian Foreign Ministry. So there will be an opportunity to convey their concerns directly it can be assumed that this one-on-one communication will contribute.
Yes, no, it's just a gesture for the Ukrainians. Guys, we are not refusing. It's clear that the failure of the meeting at the level it was planned means failure. There's nothing else behind it. And all attempts, no, we guys are ready to talk with you. We are still, yes, well, it's a good face on a bad game. That is so that Ukraine doesn't completely lose some sense of self-confidence. There's nothing more behind it. It's simplicity.
We have literally 5 seconds left until the end of the conversation. In that case, should we expect the arrival of the inspectors soon? Time?
Of course. I think this is the main negotiation track in between Russia and the USA. And of course, a key issue is being resolved here. Everything else is flourishes and vignettes around it.
Thank you. We spoke with Leonid Krutakov, a political scientist and publicist. And next, on RBC, the markets. Stay with us. Hello, this is the markets with Alevtina Pinkalskaya in the studio. So everything is in the red on the Moscow exchange today. The key indicator of the Russian market, the MOEX index, Sindao, is losing about 1%, although we even saw growth during the morning session. Undoubtedly, the reason for such fluctuations remains the same: geopolitical statements. Currently, investors might be concerned that the negotiations are not progressing as quickly as they would like. But in principle, this is already traditional and has become customary for the Russian stock market. Yesterday, during the evening session, I remind you, the MOEX index momentarily broke through the 3,000 points mark. Now we are returning again to the mark of 2,900. Well, let's hope that today's weekly inflation data, which Rosstat will release at 7 in the evening, won't dampen investors' spirits even more, especially on the eve of the Boao Bank of Russia's meeting. This Friday, the central bank will announce its decision on the key interest rate. The current consensus is to maintain it at 21%. Let's take a look at the most striking stories in the stock market. Firstly, it's not just that investors haven't seen any easing of geopolitical rhetoric, but moreover, Reuters, citing its sources in Brussels, reports that the European Union intends to ban European companies from purchasing Russian energy resources. Primarily, this concerns gas and liquefied natural gas. Against this backdrop, the quotes of our gas giants are leading in decline. Thus, Gazprom is clearly underperforming the market, losing almost 3% at the moment. While Novatek is also in the red and performing worse than the overall market trend, down 2%. We also have news, and to stay on the topic of commodities, news regarding oil. The export of crude oil from Russia is increasing, with major flows recovering. Bloomberg reports this. They attribute this to India, one of the largest buyers of Russian crude oil, having found ways to bypass the February sanctions. According to the publication, shipments from Kozmino and Primorsk have risen to multi-week highs. By the way, the quotes of our oil companies, apparently against the backdrop of general negativity and possible, yes, intensification of some negative rhetoric,